continuing with the complex numbers section. Just to kind of make sure you've seen it on the agenda, or if you haven't, that you hear it now. We will have a quiz next Tuesday over the complex number lesson. So this whole section, which is section 5, 6 in your book. Today we're going to look at two different types of problems, and then we'll work on them tomorrow. Tomorrow and Monday. And then that'll be kind of, as our review will be kind of on Monday also. That's kind of where we are with this. So, multiplying complex numbers. First off, you got to remember what I is, and then how to square stuff. Because one of the things we're going to be doing today is multiplying I times I. So, let me kind of look at a couple of examples real quick. How do you find 3 to the second power? Like, how do you find it? What do you do? 3 times 3, which ends up being 9. Okay, so what happens if I do that instead? Well, this becomes a square root of 9, which is 3. Okay, what happens if I do it this way instead? It's a good question. There are calculators? Should have calculators. Let's do the math to the calculator, make sure. So I'm just going to type it in just like it's written there. Parentheses, square root symbol with a 3. Get out of the square root, close the parentheses, square. And I didn't answer it right away, kind of help y'all out, get your calculators out, because there's a lot of questions, but it is the same as the one above. Okay. All right. So my question now is, if I take the square root of 3 and square it, I get 3. Well, what happens if I take the square root of 27 and square it? What do y'all think I'm going to get? Does anybody know? I'll give you the head hint. It's 27. Because we've talked about this before, square roots and squares are opposite functions, kind of like multiplication and division. Okay? And so, if I square a square root, whatever's underneath it is what I've got left. Okay? So, we talked earlier about I is equal to the square root of -1. So what is I squared going to equal? Well, okay, so -1, square root of -1 squared. But what is the square root of -1 squared? It's what's underneath that square root. So that's equal to -1. So it's not equal to the square root of -1, it's equal to -1. Okay? So if I take I times I, that's I squared. I squared is equal to -1. So if we're needing to get rid of the I, for some reason, we're solving equations or we get into that, one of the ways you can do that is to square both sides, or in this case, just square the one piece. All right, so the use for this is when we start to do the multiplication. All right, so 5i times -4. What do y'all think we should do here? Multiply the 5 times -4 and you get -20. But then it's I times I, which is I to the second power. Okay, what did we just go over up here? I to the second power is equal to what? So this is equal to negative 20 times negative 1, which is a positive 20. So when you multiply the two i's together, you lose the I completely and ends up changing the sign on the end. Try to move it up without losing it. Let's go do that real quick. Negative 3i times negative 7i. So what is negative 3 times negative 7? 21. And then I times I is I squared. And we just said I squared is the same thing as negative 1. So that's 21 times negative 1, which is negative 21. Can we do this part of it? We're just multiplying the i's together. So let's add it to where it's not just the imaginary part, but the complex parts with it. Okay, so this one's 2 plus 3i times negative 3 plus 5i. Do not. You have to run and grab some. So what we're having to do here is distribute. And so I always start, for me, with this first term, and I'm going to multiply it by each of the terms in the other parenthesis. Okay? So I'm just going to kind of write it down here. I have 2 times negative 3 plus 2 times 5i. So I'm just kind of writing down what I'm doing here. Okay, and then I've got this one, 3i times negative 3 plus 3i times 5i. So this line here is just me writing out what the multiplication is that I'm doing in the top part.
How can you tell these in the other part?
The ones we did yesterday? The ones we did yesterday, right here, there would have been a plus sign or a minus sign between. So now we can just do our multiplications here. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 2 times 5i, 2 times 5 is 10, so 10i. 3i times negative 3 will be a minus 9i. And 3i times 5i is a positive 15i squared. Alright, so talked about the 15i squared. I squared is a negative 1. So negative 6 plus 10i minus 9i. So 15 times a negative 1 makes that a minus 15. So that I squared would be in a negative 1 makes that a minus 15 instead of plus. And then I have two sets of like terms. I have the negative 6 and the negative 15. And I have the 10i and the minus 9i. So negative 6 minus 15 is negative 21. And then 10i minus 9i is a positive 1i, or just plus I. So negative 21 plus I. Let's look at another one. Six minus 5i times 4 minus 3. Let's do that same process.
It was plus 5 on. I can multiply 6 times 4.
No, the minus is going to go with the 5i each time.
Right, change it at the top on the left.
The 2 times the negative 3.
Ah,
Right here. It's, well, 6 minus 5i, so we treat that minus like a negative. So we have 6 times 4. And then so plus 6 times negative 3i. And minus 5i times 4. Minus 5i times negative 3i. Six times 4 is 24. 6 times negative 3i is a minus 18i. Negative 5i times 4 is a minus 20i. And negative 5i times negative 3i is a positive 15i squared. middle two terms, when you subtract negative 18 minus 20, you get negative 38. So it's negative 38i. And then for these last ones, this becomes 24 minus 15. Because the I squared makes that a negative 15. So 24 minus 15 is 9. All right. What questions do y'all have? Do we understand it? Are we okay? All right. So your assignment is on page 274 again, and it's 35 through 40. Yeah, I changed my mind again.